Ready, ready, ready.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Linda with the Small Business Development Center. Welcome to Cash Flow Projections using Excel. We are the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center, and we support Shasta and Trinity counties, Joe and myself. We are a nonprofit organization. We provide confidential, no-cost advisory and training services to small businesses. And the reason it's no cost is because your tax dollars are paying for this. So please do take advantage of these free trainings for you. We're funded by the SBA and the HSU Sponsored Programs Foundation. Our disclaimer: the information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, and other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSU Sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. And like I said earlier, this is no cost to you. There is expert advice. Right here is quite a few of our advisors for the Shasta Trinity County teams. However, there are more people than this that you can get in touch with, and we specialize in different topics. You can meet with Emily, who's the second one from the top, and she will help put you in touch with the right person to support you. And now I'd like to hand it over to Joe Rodola.
Thank you very much, Linda. We'll be tag teaming this as we move forward through the actual Excel sheet, but I'll go ahead and lead you up to that point. Again, I'm Joe Rodola, lead advisor, Shasta-Cascade SBDC. Been working here now as a advisor consultant for the last 7 years. 9 years total in small business advisory with SCED, Superior California Economic Development, added to that pile. And as you can see, I'm an old dude, been around a while, all in the credit industries, one fashion or another. I worked for a bank, did business lending for many, many years. I was actually a director of a nonprofit credit counseling agency, which I probably should put in here and didn't. For another 13 years, had my own small business for 11. And again, advising small businesses for 9. So all this information coming to you between Linda and I, years and years and years of background experience. I'm a numbers guy, all right? People have to do things like make business plans when they start a business if they need to find funding and a 2 to 3 year forecast. Well, my forte is on that side. I help you with the forecast. I'm great at doing that with you, okay? Crystal balling your future, so to speak. I will assist in the business planning side and the write-up, but writing, not my forte. There's several other companies and organizations in our area. SCORE, for one, SCORE, Women's Business Center. Trish runs that. And we can all help and assist in the planning process. But most people are afraid of what we're about to talk about, the forecast piece, the crystal ball piece. And that's where I really come into play and love helping you with that particular part of the plan. So cash flow, let's talk about cash flow projections. People always get tied up on what that means. Basically, it's the total amount of cash, it's what it says, that flows in and out of the business, okay? So it's going to start by you're going to make money. You're going to sell stuff. You're going to sell either you're going to sell this package of gum. You're going to be in retail. You're going to be in service. You're going to sell a service. People will pay you for the service. Okay. So that's income coming in. That's cash flow in. Okay. Then you're going to pay for the lights. You're going to pay maybe some salaries. You're going to pay rent. That's cash flow out, okay? The thing about cash flow is it's the same and it's different than profit and loss. Let's put it that way, okay? They coexist in many areas, income coming in, expense going out. The P&L does that, profit and loss does that too, okay? But there's intangibles on cash flow that are different than the P&L, all right? One of them being depreciation. We'll do that in another class. And by the way, you're going to get copies of all these slides, so don't fret. You won't be left out in the cold on this deal. You'll get the slides that we're doing today, and you'll get a blank copy of the Excel sheet that we will be working with in a few minutes. Okay, so you don't have to memorize it. But again, we have P&L classes too. So there's a lot of different classes you can attend. Today we're talking about cash flow. Okay, so total amount of cash flows in and out of the business, usually recorded on a monthly basis, and always should be forecasted at least one fiscal year in advance. Whether you run June to June 30, July 1, that kind of fiscal year. Part of our particular organization here runs to September 30th, of all things. And then normal operation is a calendar year, the January 1 to December 31. So it doesn't matter what your time frame is, but normally you got to run it as a year. And obviously, if cash flow is positive, you have more money left at the end than when you started. That's the theory of cash flow. Okay. When a person comes in to want to borrow money, they need to show that they have enough cash flow to then make that new payment, right? That's the key issue. So people that write off, one of the things I'll warn you about right now, people that write off everything and end up with zero left at the end of the year, it's great for taxes, bad for wanting to borrow money and expand. So it's kind of a catch-22, isn't it? So you either don't want to pay the IRS, understandable, or you want to borrow money, can't do both. Zero at the bottom line indicates you have nothing left, okay? So the forewarn is, and I've had people do this, they'll contact me when I was at the bank and say, gee, Joe, I had a fantastic year. I sold $1 million worth of stuff. And I'd say, congratulations. Is that the first time you did it? Yeah, first time I ever sold $1 million. So what was your bottom line? What was the end of the year totals after everything was said and done? Oh, zero. Oh, so you have nothing left, right? And then they go, well, yeah. So you have to watch and be careful when you do write-offs and you do expenses, that you leave a little room in the bottom of this cash flow and or profit loss so that you can borrow money when you need to. That's one of the key issues, okay? A little bonus information there. Cash flow projections versus the statement. That's pretty easy. A projection is obviously an educated guess. I call it the crystal ball portion of this ball game. You're going to look into the future and anticipate income flow and expense outflow. So that's a projection. And then the actual obviously is when you record what happens. You could also, as we'll talk about, I think in the next slide, you can also use this as a budget, help you actually utilize this as a budget. Okay, so how does cash flow work? Well, it starts with a cash balance. Maybe you're going to throw some money into the pot, okay, of your own in a startup, or maybe you're going to borrow money and have a loan that's going to throw money into the pot as a startup. Then you're going to spend some of that money for equipment and whatever else you're going to use it for, first, last, on the rent, whatever. And then you're going to make sales, cash sales. You may have accounts receivable where you bill someone they haven't paid you yet, okay? The other injections, and then minus what you've paid out. for rent and lights and insurance and all those little pieces, okay? Then you end up with an ending cash balance, as you'll see when we get to the spreadsheet, okay? So why create these? The majority of the time, a lot of people are doing this basically for one reason, and that is they need to borrow money. Either startup capital, expansion capital, buying another business. We've seen a lot of people lately in the Shasta County area buying existing businesses. Old owners are tired, especially after this last 18 months of the pandemic. And they've been historically profitable in the past, and they're selling businesses, okay? So you need money, right, to do this. You need to either get a loan of some kind, an investor of some kind. They'll want to see cash flow projections, okay? You always have existing information if you're buying an existing business, but you also need to do projections of what you're going to do once you take over, okay? And let's face it, cash is still king. It's, you know, cash is king and real estate is still king. We don't know how long a real estate's going to last, in my opinion. Might be a scary future, but for now, real estate is king as well. That's collateral. But cash is king. Cash makes the world go round, okay? Estimated 80% of business failures are due to, of course, poor cash flow. Makes sense. To gauge whether your business is profitable, of course, also a piece of this. Use as a budgetary tool, which we talked about, okay? Forecast potential profits in the future, and of course, assist financial institutions and investors in making loan decisions, okay? A lot of people, and again, this particular webinar, although a lot of the techniques you're about to hear will cover in various areas of, well, in all areas of the United States for sure, probably all areas of the world, really. For those of you that are calling in from outside Shasta, Trinity County, we gear these webinars that we have here with a lot of local knowledge and information. All right. So if we refer to a bank, we refer to a financial institution, we refer to Shasta Angels, for instance, that's an angel investment group in Shasta County. So what we're telling you in the overall scheme of things is that there will probably be more than one angel investor group if you're in a bigger city. So when we talk Shasta Angels, we're talking in scope of angel investment groups. That's really become a thing, okay? It's basically a mini Shark Tank, except they don't yell at you like the TV show, yeah. You know, so when we talk about Shasta Angels, we're talking about Shasta, Trinity County. And again, you'll have some information as to where to find other SBDC offices, since we cover every city and every county in the United States of America, including Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, in the southeast area off those islands. We cover everywhere, okay? There's one of us kind, or one of us Linda and I kinds, all around the United States. And we'll give you the way to track that down. Obviously, you can Google it. Always can Google SBDC in your area, and up will pop the SBDC organizations in your area that can assist you with this same type of assistance, okay? All right, any questions at this point? By the way, if you want to put questions in, you can put them in the chat. We do try to watch the chat. And there'll be time, I believe, at the end of this also to do live questions also at the end, which is not a problem. But if you have a burning question as we're going along, put it in the chat. We'll help to try to answer it for you.
Nothing so far, Joe.
Pretty clean so far. Okay, here we go. Wilbur, that's an old show. See how old I am? Mr. Ed used to watch it all the time. Anyway, YouTube that if you don't know what Mr. Ed is. Anyway, cash flow projections. We have a wonderful cash flow sheet that was prepared by someone other than myself. And we're going to try to bring that up live here. And we're going to start playing with it. We're going to start putting numbers on the page, okay? So I'll stop sharing here. I will bring this up here. I will go into share screen. I will try to find, let's see, it's this one, I believe.
There it is.
What are we seeing, Linda? Are we seeing our little Excel sheet?
I am. I see it through column K and down through row 20.
Okay, so let's see if I can move mine to a different screen. Come on, baby. So let's go.
That looks good.
That look okay?
Yes.
I'll put my little, there we go. I'll put me at the bottom. All right. See, my screen is so tiny. How do we, is it showing full screen? I must need a bigger screen, I guess, huh?
It looks like it is, Joe, but I'm only seeing down to row 27, so you might just have to scroll up and down. What's tricky is we like it larger so we can all see it. If
Yeah,
you make it
exactly.
all fit, it makes it hard for us to, the font's so small we can't see it.
Can't see the numbers. Okay. All right. So here it is. And what's cool about this particular sheet is it's pre-made. Okay. You got the months across the top, right? You can put your address of your business, name of your business at the top there, type of business right after that, prepared by, you can put your name there. I think we've got 2021 as the year over in the date column already. And you've got your 12 months of the year, 1 through 12. So if you were technically going to start a business, let's say July 1, I always like to just have you start in the July 1 category, okay? So that way, you know, calendar wise, what month of the year you started. So if you want 2 years worth of financial forecasts at this particular point in the year, I suggest you do the 6 months of 21 and then forecast 22 and 23. You end up with 2.5 years of forecast. The bankers will like that. Don't forget when you're doing forecasts that you give reasons why you're showing, especially in the area of sales or gross cash sales, for instance, up here, why the sales are increasing or decreasing. If you are a seasonal business that has a great summer and your winters kind of tail off, have an explanation in the business plan as to why that happens. So you're able to discuss that with your lender when they say, gee whiz, how come your May, June, July, August is so high and your November, December, January is so low? And of course, as you expand and grow, you'll want to be able to explain to them in the years in the future why your sales are increasing at that particular time.
Joe?
Yes, Linda.
We have a question. I have someone who wants to sell me a cleaning franchise, but refuses to share the book so I can see the projection income. To me, that looks fishy. What do you think?
Well, from history, I can tell you that to verify a value of a business, you have to be able to see the historical financial documents. All right. It is always, I suppose, good. And I've never had too much trouble with a client coming into me and saying, gee whiz, how can I do this? I can then say to you and to the old owner, if necessary, I need the last 2 years profit and loss statements to be able to assist the buyer in buying the business from you. And guess what? The bank is going to want to see the last 2 or 3 years worth of the old owner's financials as well, or they won't do it, period. So the old owner is going to have to be ready to divulge that information to at least the lenders and your people that do your advising, to be able to assist in not only preparing the future forecasts, but in identifying values. Because values of businesses, there are several ways you can calculate values of existing businesses. There's a way you can do it using profits. There's a way you can do it using sales. There's a way you can do it with a combination of both. So you end up with, normally not one perfect business, valuation, but you end up with like 2 or 3, sort of like your credit score. Right? Nobody has the same credit score at Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax normally. They're always normally different. So what happens is they add them together, divide by 3, here's your average score, right? Same type of thing for business value. And it also depends on if there's real estate or equipment involved. It's a lot easier to evaluate a business if there's building in dirt, real estate, or larger pieces of equipment, because those have tangible value. The thing that is hard to evaluate is goodwill. So goodwill, what's goodwill? Goodwill is, let's say somebody, crazily enough, whoever owned, McDonald's wants to sell McDonald's. So their golden arches, has value. The actual logo itself has value. The Aflac duck that says Aflac on TV has value. The Geico gecko, that guy's got value. So, it just depends on the business. For the smaller businesses, it's obviously either equipment, real estate, and or profitability of the business. So you have to have profit and loss statements to evaluate. So you're right. If they're not willing to divulge that information, there's going to be a very big difficulty in getting anybody to do it. Give you a loan for it, period. So I guess that's the answer to that. And we can help devise that. Once you come in, sign up for our services. We'll give you the last slide we have today. I'll tell you how to do that for you that are in the area. Shasta, Trinity County can sign up for our services, and then we can advise you on how to go about making that next step. We have seen since January of this year, about the end of January on, a large number of existing businesses in the area selling out to existing employees, members of the family, and good friends. So it's happening. It's happening all over. Kind of an interesting thing that's going on. Okay, so let's go ahead then, and if there's no more questions at this time, let's start putting some money in the holes. So let's say we start in January. We're just going to use that, and we're going to enter $1,000 cash sales in January. You hit the button. Well, look at that. So what we have set these up to do at this point is to automatically autofill. And I think Linda helped correct this the last time we did this class. The autofill sometimes stops halfway through, but I think we got them all. So the autofill will autofill across. It really helps when you get into the expense areas that don't change, right? When you have expenses that stay the same, like rent, for instance. Now let's say we're going to go ahead and just do that now. We'll put rent $500 and hit enter. And it didn't do it because I spoke too soon. How about that? Oh, there it went. So January wasn't in the autofill. How about that? Well, we can fix that too. Suffice it to say, it's always nice to have autofill going, because once you put in a number like rent, normally doesn't change in a year. it's cool that it automatically fills across. All right. The other one that may be similar when you're doing this is maybe advertising or your telephone bill, right? Your city utilities, the gas, the electric, that'll probably go up and down. But for forecast purposes, a lot of times you'll want to just fill in an estimated number of your utility costs, and it'll autofill across so you don't have to waste time having to do 12 inputs if you're starting in January. The other thing that you want to do, of course, is on a startup, you may have a loan injection to begin with, right? Or you're putting money into the pot. So let's go ahead and put $10,000 in there to begin the process. You have 10 grand. And let's say you buy some, we're going to buy some advertising up front, $250. First, last cleaning deposit, $1,000 gets you into the building. Hook up your utilities, a phone bill, you're going to hook that up, say that's, I don't know, $150. Hook up your utilities, maybe give them a deposit. That might be $500. Oh, you got to buy your insurance up front for the first 6 months anyway. So maybe that's $500. So as you can see, what it's doing is you've injected the 10,000, or the loans injected the 10,000. You've subtracted out your expenses up front before you open your doors. So far, we've tallied $2,400 in expenses, which leaves you $7,600 left over from your original injection. So guess where it goes? It's carried over into your startup funding. And now you've got money you can spend in case your sales aren't enough to pay for your continued expenses as you move forward. Okay. So let's see, let's purchase, let's say, were we a retail store? Let's say we're a retail store. We sold $1,000 worth of stuff. We bought $200, $250 on an ongoing basis of merchandise. We'll say we're just going to work ourselves at that, so that we're just going to have no wages right now. Outside service, bookkeeping, maybe once a year, April or March, you'll do the taxes. So let's say March. You have 150 there. It'll want to autofill. So what you can go ahead and do is just zero it out after the fact, and it'll erase it. See? So now you know it's a 1 month expense of 150 in the month of March. See how that happens? And of course, the figures all carry across. So it tracks everything for you. Let's say you buy some supplies, office supplies, $25. Put some money aside for repairs and maintenance. Say you're going to advertise once a quarter. So you're going to advertise end of March. But you're going quarterly, so we're going to take that out. Another time, you're going to do it in June. Zero there, zero there. See what's happening. You can adjust it accordingly real easily by just zeroing out the ones you don't do. One of the ones that people often forget is travel expense. So travel expense is one that can be easy calculated depending on what you're doing. Sole proprietors normally do what's called a mileage count. And what the mileage count for mileage is every year the IRS comes up with how many cents per mile they allow as a expense write-off. It's supposed to take into consideration gasoline costs, insurance costs, repair costs, okay? So I think, I don't know, Linda, if you know for sure what it is, 55 to 56 cents per mile last few years.
I can look it up for you, Joe. It's right around there.
Yeah, let's just say it's 56. So I'll put 56 cents a mile. So what you do is, and you need to track this officially. There are apps available on phones that will help you track this mileage, okay? Or you use my wife's technique. She's been in the real estate business for 21 years, real estate sales. And real estate, obviously, there's a lot of mileage involved, right? So she bought a little pocket calendar with the months, right? And the days and the months. And so what she does is has that in her center console with a pen. And every morning she gets up, goes to her tripometer on, trip A or trip B, whatever one she's using, checks the mileage from the day before, writes it in the book, in the calendar book, hits it to 0, and she's off again for the next day. So there are easy ways to do it. There is some apps, as I mentioned, or you can do it the old-fashioned way, write it down. But that way, with something like in her case, she writes off between $8,000 and $10,000 a year, depending on how many miles she's driven, showing houses, doing the setup, taking the cleaners out there, the carpet guys, a lot of traveling. You'd be surprised as to how much mileage you guys can put together in your business and create a write-off. Okay. So anyway, there's that, accounting, legal. So all these expenses, telephone, let's say what our telephone's going to be $100 a month, let's say. Utilities will say $150 a month, just keep it clean. Insurance, let's say you pay it every 6 months. So you paid it when you started, so you'll pay again in July. Don't forget liability insurance, everybody, because that is a very important expense. I don't know of any type of business that probably shouldn't have liability coverage. My little business is all based on training and teaching classes, okay? I teach first-time homebuyer class for Shasta County, City of Redding, City of Anderson, City of Shasta Lake for first-time home buyers. Been doing that for 15 years. So you gotta have insurance. In fact, the only way I could get paid by those city organizations and county organizations, and if you ever contract with city, county, state, or federal, they're gonna make you carry $1 million minimum liability insurance policy, even if you don't have a lot of risk, which I don't have. If you're mowing lawns, cutting trees, climbing ladders, using chainsaws, those are high risk jobs, okay? And high risk businesses. They'll have a much higher premium than Linda and my jobs of teaching people and training people and using other sites to have these classes. I've taught my classes at the EDC for years. I was at United Way for years. I was at the library for years. I was at the Shasta Lake Chamber of Commerce up there for years. So I used somebody else's venue. And like I said, I've been in business now, that's my 11th year. And the reason you have these insurances for the most part is losses, and many times losses due to lawsuits. So that's the main reason that you do this, okay? There's also a form of insurance, I'm trying to remember, I'm having a little bit of a senior moment. It's called, Linda, I don't know what, if you remember the title.
Is it the omissions one?
Yeah, the omissions one, yep, errors and omissions, very good. So errors and omissions. You notice that we had a disclaimer at the beginning of this seminar. One of our slides is a disclaimer, right? That says, don't act on what we're telling you but we're giving you enough information to go somebody to really have a professional situation happen, right? So that's the type of situation for liability coverage is to, if somebody wants to sue you, it protects you, especially if you're a sole proprietor. Because sole proprietors have unlimited liability personally. That's why people sometimes will form LLCs, limited liability, or corporations, so they can separate the person from the business a little more aggressively. You're still not perfectly safe, don't get me wrong. People sue people, they sue everybody. But suffice it to say, that's why people form LLCs and corporations, to separate liability. But liability insurance itself is I like going to bed at night knowing I have $1 million business liability policy, an errors and emissions piece to that, and $1 million personal umbrella in case I hit a Lamborghini on the way home from a class. See? So it's all in the help and an assistance to make you feel better as a business owner that you're protected. Obviously an important piece of the puzzle.
Joe, I have a couple questions.
You betcha.
What about a home-based business? I don't pay extra rent, but I'll be deducting partial home rental in taxes. Do I add the partial payment to the spreadsheet?
You can, especially if you know you're doing this on an ongoing basis. That's an interesting, I have never done the write off on the room. Do you do that, Linda, on yours?
I'm sorry, do I do what, Joe?
You're a home-based business. Do you write off your
No,
office?
because I use such a small portion of my home that it's not worth all the pain.
Yeah.
I just have a small desk and it's not worth it.
Yeah, I do the same thing. There are some technical catches to doing that, especially if you're buying the house and you're using it as for business. I am not a CPA, so I'm not gonna advise you completely. Check with your CPA and your tax people on this. But if you write off part of a room that you're, like a second bedroom, third bedroom, whatever it is, and you're writing that off plus utilities and so forth, there are some catches. There are some catches when you sell the property someday if you decide to move. I just know this from hearing people and experience, okay? All I know is it can be a glitch. If you're a renter and you're using it to pay part of the rent, okay, then I would go ahead and write it in as an expense here. I would, because that shows a true expense write-off. I, for instance, have a small rent, even though I operate my business out of my house. And then you go, well, how do you do that? Because I'm renting a space usable at our Economic Development Corporation, our EDC. It's $100 a month lease for space, and you sign up on a calendar to use the rooms, the various rooms. Or there's a place called Drop-In in town here. And Drop-In is rentable office space. You can rent it by the hour, the day, the week. There's all sorts of ways you can rent these spaces out, and those will count as actual rent. So there's many ways you can get around the situation, but if you are using it as a rent expense, go ahead and write it off.
Another question, Joe, is, am I able to write off tolls on top of mileage, or is that included in the mileage?
I would have to defer that to a CPA to verify what I'm about to tell you, okay? I believe that all auto expense, I was always taught that the 56 cents a mile covers everything. However, since toll is not always, we have no toll roads up here in Northern California. So we don't pay tolls at all up here. As we go to San Francisco and cross a bridge. Check with your CPA to verify if that's split out or not. That's a very interesting question. Thank you.
And that covers our questions currently, Joe.
Wonderful. And Linda, what do you see here as you're seeing us input this information?
Well, it's interesting just because the spreadsheet is more than you can easily see on screen. So if you scroll up, Joe, you can see the months across the top. And if you scroll to the right, you're going to see after month 12, there's a total.
Yes.
And those are formulas. I did put a note in the chat that in July, I'll be teaching an Excel Beyond the Basics class. Some of you I know when attended the Excel class I taught earlier, I think it was last month. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper into Excel, but Excel is the #1 tool I believe business owners need to use in order to make their life easier. It's going to take a little bit of learning curve time, but it is completely worth it. So at the top, you can see how these in column O, it's totaling the items on the left through formulas. So we had some auto-populating. Joe would enter a number, it would populate to the right. And then if you go to the bottom, you're seeing totals as well. So something like this to track your cash flow is an amazing way for you to start really paying attention and seeing more specifically when you start making money. Joe, can you talk about looking at the money and noticing, the cash flow and when it's looking better? You might want to edit some of your numbers that are 1,000 to be smaller because sometimes your numbers aren't looking so positive.
Yeah, in fact, I think you're absolutely correct. Let's monkey with the numbers. Let's change these a little bit. Let's say you had to here, we'll make this number a lot smaller, and then we'll see probably some very large changes here. Let's say you purchased a bunch of merchandise, you're a retail seller, and you wanted to buy wholesale a bunch of stuff. So you'd have more inventory, okay? So let's say let's really monkey this business. All right, so you pre-bought $7,000 worth of inventory or merchandise to prepare for your opening in January, okay? So look what's happened. Your cash flow position has dropped dramatically. You don't have that $7,600 carryover. You're now down to $600. So your starting January 1 is $600. Okay. And let's say on top of that, let's do some other interesting things.
Yeah, we start seeing some negatives in columns 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. So as we change the sales, and this is one of those things that you have to input into your business plan in writing, what these sales numbers are and how they're derived, okay? So if you're selling a product, for instance, and you're selling a product for, I don't know, let's pick a number. Let's pick a product of $10 to make it nice and round. So say you're selling a product for $10 and you're saying that in month 1, January, let's pull that back. There we go. Month of January, you're selling $700 worth of merchandise, whatever that merchandise might be. So you're selling at $10 a piece, 70 whatevers, 70 pieces. You're going to have to describe in your sales and marketing section, as well as your projection verification section, that you're selling $10 items times 70 equals $700. If you stayed that way, because of expenses that come throughout the year, in this case, the insurance comes in every 6 months, right? That's a big chunk. You have a $250 advertising expense. If you do not sell more than that $700, as Linda mentioned, all of a sudden, look what happens in July. You're starting to lose money. In fact, the end of June turns from positive cash flow to negative. So now you're minus 50 all of a sudden. So then you've got to tell yourself, okay, to be able to survive this $700 with these expenses cannot continue. You've got to sell more. You've got to sell more, whatever it is. More, we'll call it widgets, since widgets have been used for a long, long time. So now we're going to sell 80 widgets in June. Okay, look, still not enough, is it? It gets us by for a month or two, but then we have some expenses come in, that insurance of $500 right here, that all of a sudden is due. Okay, insurance is due. And by the way, just a nice little clue here. Many of you probably already know this, but if you can do an insurance payment of one payment a month all the way across for the year, a lot easier to budget for than semi-annual or quarterly payments. No doubt about it. I know my wife and I, personally and business, have used a monthly pay plan for our insurance simply because we don't want $1,000, $1,500 due in June. Okay, so we pay $200 a month. Boom, 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 whatever it is, $250. Boom, 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 boom. That way you can budget it easier. You can put $250 across the board here, and it's a lot easier, as I mentioned, to budget. Okay. All right. So you sold $800 for a couple of months. You had that big insurance bill. So now you're saying to yourself, well, now more people are buying. Okay. More people are buying things. Now we'll go ahead and sell 100 widgets for the rest of the year. And as you can see, you've got some catch up to do, don't you? So everything hinges, we call it break even. One of the things that we'll do when you come in, and by the way, this is the goal here, is to eventually have you come in and see someone, one of us, to do this with you. Okay? It's a step-by-step process, and we'll do this with you after you start building the written portion of your business plan. We'll set up a time. I normally put a 2-hour time span to do this. I can't remember if I mentioned it this class. It's my second class today, but I'll mention it again. We're sometime, hopefully this month, we're going to be probably allowing in-person meetings here at our office on Sacramento and Pine Street, corner of Sacramento and Pine, downtown Reading, live meetings here at our office. I just am beside myself. So once that happens, we set aside 2 hours. You come in, we put this up on a big screen monitor, got a 24-inch monitor here. I put it up on that big screen, and we walk through this together, utilizing your business plan and saying how much you're going to sell to whom. We will calculate for you and your business each month of the first 2 years at least of operation. If you want to go 3, we'll go 3. Because you need to know when you're going to break even, right? And the bank's going to want to know when you're going to break even, okay? And how you're going to do it. So according to this situation, before we start clearing and making money again, in this scenario, starting out at 700, we better be selling $1,500 worth of widgets by July, or look what happens. We don't have, see, there's where we go to zero. We start turning the corner to a positive cash flow in August. So every time you change a number, every time you do it, it has an effect on your overall success or non-success. That's why when I have somebody that comes in and talks to me about doing forecasts, I tell that client to do expenses first. Okay, you need to know expenses first. So if you know what your rent is, if you contact whoever it is that, you know, the PG&E or City of Reading, find out what that office normally is for utilities. You contact Spectrum or whoever you're going to go through for internet and telephone, you find out what you're going to be charged for that. You can start piecing together this expense side right away. Okay, right away. Then your marketing, sales, your review of client base that you're going to sell to, which you know, people say, well, how do I do that? Shop the heck out of your competition for one. All right, do shopping, literally. Okay, maybe go to their store. Maybe buy a little something. Check out how they market it. Check out how they price it. Check out how they post things in the windows, especially if you're going to have a retail space. Find out from your competition is going to help you a ton to find out what to do and what not to do. Okay, because you're going to need that research to come up with these sales numbers. Okay, and you're also going to have to write in as part of the marketing strategy who your competition is and why are you better than they are? Or are you going to sell something different than they sell? Okay, because you're going to have to come up with a reason why these sales are going to occur. You know, I use the pizza parlor as an example because there's a bunch of them here in Reading. Seems to be one on every corner. You've got the, you know, the Little Caesars, inexpensive. You've got Papa John's, take it home and cook it. And then you got everybody else besides. You got some mom and pops, some locals. You got Fratelli's. You got Round Table, you know. So you're going to compete with all these people. Then you're going to compete with Winco. Winco sells pizza, okay, by the slice or, you know, by the pie. So you got a lot of places you got to compete with. Boy, you better shop them all. You better shop them all. Because each, and then you have, you know, get a little binder, a little notebook. So when you go back outside real quick, you have a little list to jot down. Okay, so what did they sell the pepperoni slice for? Was the slice big or small? You know, was the slice hot or cold? Was it easy to chew or hard as leather? Because each of those steps to your list of things you check, you'd be eating a lot of pizza, won't you? Anyway, as the things you want to check, you want to, you know, compete against those things. Yours, you want it hot, chewy. The cheese stretches when you bite into it. The mozzarella, you know, all those things are going to come into play. So, doing those verifications of what everybody else is doing is going to be imperative.
So, as we create our businesses, this hasn't talked about one really key aspect, and that is row 30. Owner's draw, how wonderful it is when our business starts to make some money and we get to take money out. So can you talk a little about owner's draw?
There you go. Good old line 30, item number P. And that is one thing too that the banks and financial institutions are going to want to stress is that shortly, eventually, once the corner is turned, and the business starts to make a profit, okay, or starts a positive cash flow. In this particular line, we're just going to use the numbers we already have here. Obviously, if the owner took a draw in month one, by the time, let's see, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. By the time August comes, there's no draw to be had, right? unless they sell more product. So as soon as you make that turn to positive cash flow, definitely is the time to start thinking about, okay, now you're gonna have to start getting some money out of here. Okay. So in this particular case, what I would do is start it, let's say, in that month. If these were the numbers, okay, and start with it, start easy and go from there. Obviously, the 200 is not a lot of money, but it's not killing the business at that point because you've already turned the corner. Your sales have gone up to 1,500 a month in theory, and now, with all the other expenses taken into consideration, 200 bucks ain't going to kill the business. Okay. And that's probably a good rule of thumb. Obviously, every business is different. In my opinion, a small service business operated out of a home, basically like the businesses Linda and I have, our expenses are there anyway. We're going to pay our rent because we live there. Okay. We pay the lights because we live there. They're easier to pull cash from as owner's draw. They're easier to survive because you're working already on a shoestring. You do not have outside office space, outside lights, outside insurance, outside phone. You already have that stuff. I operate out of my laptop computer at the house that I have and my cell phone, personal cell phone. That's how my business operates. I have a little, I have a little Facebook page, and I have a little website, and many of you will have those things. And that's what, so you can operate off that. If you're a retail store and you have all the other pieces of the puzzle where you have rents, lights, and all these expenses come into play, it's a lot obviously tougher to get that point where you can start making that draw unless you sell a whole bunch of stuff quickly. Okay. But basically you'll want to do that, and you'll want to show the bank, financial institution, that you're not going to just work for free for the rest of your life. Definitely the case, as Linda said, that line 30, owner's draw, is hugely important. If you have a loan payment, okay, if you have a loan payment, we're going to change line 29 to loan payment. So if you're borrowing money from someone, okay, and your first payment, you're going to get the loan in January, your first payment's going to be February. Guess what? Boom, shakalaka. So now you have to prove that that loan payment can be made by your cash flow. So then you look at it right here. We haven't made any adjustments for the $200 that you're going to be pulling out for the loan payment. Look, it goes negative quick, doesn't it? All of a sudden you're in the hole after about 4 months. So that would indicate to me then that you have to come up here and start selling quicker. Selling more quicker. We had put $1,000 in here originally, so we'll go ahead and put 1,000 in. So you see where we're going with this? That's why I like to do expenses first, always. And don't put the owner draw in until we figure out when you can start pulling. That's the key issue. We had a class this morning at 9 o'clock, SBA 7A loan program webinar. And Jamie from one of our local lovely banks, Cornerstone, made sure that she said that loan payment and the importance of being able to make that payment in your cash flow projections right away is key.
Joe, we are 1 minute from the top of the hour.
There we go. It's getting close. Any last questions at this point?
And just to let everyone know, in case you missed it in the chat, you will get a copy of this spreadsheet. You will get a copy of the slide deck. Emily will send an email out in a few days, and that will include a link to this webinar if you'd like to watch it again.
I'm going to stop share here and pull up the final screen if I can do it correctly. Let's see if I can. See, what did that do? Anything?
Hold on just a moment, Joe. I'm capturing the, I want to share the survey link with everyone. There,
Good.
yes, you are back to next step. So right now I am going to share in the chat the link to our survey. We would love
Perfect.
to hear what you think of this webinar and any improvements. We're making changes all the time to better provide what you're looking for. And also if there are other requests of other webinars you'd like to see, we would like to know that too.
Wonderful. And here's our last slide. Again, you'll be getting a copy of this deck. We'll have your email address. We'll send this to you. There's our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn, our Facebook, our Twitter. To sign up for one-on-one consulting, which is hopefully the next step so that we can do this for and with you. Go to Shasta-SBDC.org, which is the website. Sign up for our free services. Everything we do, again, is at no cost. We only ask that if you thank us if things go well and you get loans and you add staff, that you let us know you do that and thank us so that we can continue to prove to the SBA that we're not all going out on the lake and swimming, utilizing their money. Obviously, they want the money to be used to help you guys out, and we love doing it. So that helps us prove the fact that we can help and assist you in the future. Emily is your main contact, our admin. You first sign up, and then you can ask to meet with any or all of us. There's a whole group of us. We have Rebecca, our QuickBooks specialist. She's phenomenal. Linda's outstanding. And if you need money, I'm your guy. Try to help hunt it down for you.
And I just put in the chat, Joe, the link that I shared in the chat for our survey. If you click on that now, it will open a separate window. And once we wrap up the webinar, you can return to that link and complete the survey. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I will have Joe wrap up and we'll conclude our webinar.
Thank you, Linda. Exceptional as always. Thank you all for joining us today. Like I say, next step, if you're local in the area, is come in and meet with us. I'll be happy to help you out. If you're outside the area, which a lot of times we are, there are SBDCs all over the country. So find your one close to you. They can assist you in the same way. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Joe. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.